Welcome to Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suedo. I'm speaking today with Ron Douglas. He's the CEO and Executive Director of VHM Limited. They're an Australian mining exploration company that's focused on powering the world's green energy transition. Ron, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael. It's a pleasure.
Your company's flagship project is called Goschen. It's located about 300 kilometers northwest of Melbourne. It's been called one of the most substantial rare earth discoveries of its kind. There's more than 400,000 tons of rare earth oxide on site, and last I saw an estimated value of about $1 billion US. Ron, give us a quick tour. What sort of minerals are you expecting to mine, and how far along is the project?
So essentially, VHM is in possession of what I call a province. My children's children will be working on this asset. It is that extensive, with more to come. If I quickly explain the style, 1 million years ago, there was an inland sea and it washed the granites, and that has pulled both the rare earths and the heavy minerals into a sand setting. And so our mining method is just digging up the sand and then using gravity to extract the heavy minerals, which includes the rare earths, and then we float off the rare earths. We then put the tailings, which are residual sand, back into the void, put the overburden and the topsoil back on, and it returns to the way it was as farmland. So it's probably as environmentally appropriate mining as one could come across. So great asset, huge size, and in fact we're involved in decarbonising the world, because what we're producing is actually what is needed to achieve that.
All right, well, I like the sound of that, and I like how you described how the mining is taking place. Really interesting, just pulling up the sand, let the minerals fall out, and then putting the topsoil back again. You mentioned one of the minerals there is something called zircon, and I'm going to venture that's not a household name, though there are actually some zircon gemstones. Ron, could you give us a quick primer? Exactly what is zircon and why is it important?
Well, it's zircon and the titanium minerals, which we call the heavy minerals, as opposed to the rare earths, what are required for urbanizing this world. So zircon tiles, and depending on how hard you want it, how much zircon you use, titania is the TiO2s for paints, etc. And so the heavy minerals we call urbanization. And and the benefit to our shareholders, of course, is that we have two revenue streams: one, the heavy mineral, and two, the rare earths. Right now, if you look at urbanizing the world, there is still 1.4 million Indians, another 600 million people in Southeast Asia, and most of Africa who still want to live like you and I. And that requires paints and tiles. And so it doesn't sound exotic, but it is it is a wonderful revenue flow because it's always there. And then I can rely on people like my wife, who always wants to paint more or tile more. And so not only once you've got them, you then want to change them. So it's a wonderful revenue stream to match with our rare earths.
Now, Ron, you've been in this business for the better part of a quarter century, but you just joined VHM a little over a year ago. I'm wondering, what is it about VHM's projects that made you sit up and say, hey, I got to be part of this?
Oh, look, my background is gold, copper, base metals, and VHM reached out to me, and I then went and read the literature, and I went, what a great asset, because unlike more traditional mining, where it is hard rock rare earth, they've got to mine, in other words, drill, blast, bring out of the mine, crush, grind, to end up at the point we're starting at. Nature has done all that for us. It's put all the energy in that, people that are our comparators are actually having to do to be at our point. So there's this huge resource in a sand setting, and it's pretty hard. I think I'd reframe it as sort of more market gardening than mining, because it's near surface and it's a really straightforward process. So not only is it adding to, well, in fact, the devices we're using right now to have this conversation requires rare earths. And in every phone, every electron, it is a strategic metal. And then on the other side, it's the urbanization. So you can feel good about it. It's actually adds, the value we're adding to decarbonisation is great. We're ending up with once we're finished, because we're stripping and then refilling, our impact is low. So it ticks a lot of boxes, because as you get older, you actually want to be adding to how the world moves forward.
Definitely. Let's zoom back out again. The project isn't just big, it's been described as a potential game changer for Australia's economy. Australia has a number of policies to support rare earth mining. Are you receiving, or do you expect to receive, government support?
We're currently in discussions. There was what they were looking for. We're in the state of Victoria, and so each state has their own permitting process, and the primary permit, which is the environmental effects statement, was awarded to us in December. That was a precondition for the export finance and the other critical mineral agencies to engage with us. So we've started that engagement. Interestingly, Victoria released their critical minerals roadmap the same day they approved our assets. So in subsequent discussions with the resource minister, etc., we are working hand in glove to actually deliver what is important to Victoria. Victoria, with that release of that roadmap, was saying, we're open for business. We really want these projects to be successful. So I think everyone sees it in the press, but we are getting government support. However, it does take time. I temper government with it takes time to really build up the supply chains that, how shall I say, geopolitical are in other countries other than what I call aligned countries.
So you mentioned you've already received approval of that environmental impact statement. So what's next? What's the next major milestone with the project?
Oh, look, we have a great technical solution, and as people have seen, as we've just released the data on how we're going to come into production, we were approved at 5 million tonne per annum, but we're going to start at 1.5, which is imminently financeable. It has a great outcome that then self-finances us to the 5 million tonne per annum. So we've got a technical solution with great economics. They're wonderful. And everyone will have seen that when they read our notice. So then we look at because this is to develop is about risk management and making sure I can go to the board for our final investment decision with a well-managed risk profile. The second risk was the permitting process and government support. Our primary permit was approved, which then is condition precedent to our mining license. So we're just finalising the mining license with the resource department. And that we're looking for that in March. And the resource department is working with us, so we're going back and forth to make sure we're all aligned and we can get quick approval. Which then takes, so I've got a technical solution, a regulatory solution, so now it's the financial solution, and the financial solution is our focus, and that's where we are at this moment in time.
Well, that's exactly what I want to jump to next. Just how much money do you need to bring the project to fruition, and how are you going to get it?
Well, as I said, we've reduced it considerably to put it at a size which is bankable, and that's circa 150, 160 million Australian. It's always finance in this market for mining projects always requires you to look at it, and that's exactly what we're doing. We have the Australian Export Finance, and we're in conversations with them and the critical mineral funds. Also, we're about to go to our Asian neighbours and look at offtake with like-minded countries, as we call it. And part of that will be, and we're looking for your support. So we'll be looking at those to put debt into the asset, commercial banks for debt, and then obviously there'll be an equity piece as well. And we've had great support from our shareholders. And I must admit that since we have both received our permit and people have seen what we're trying to do, there is inbound interest in being involved in this asset. So it'll be a mix of government funds through their export finance, commercial debt, and obviously equity. So I'd like to say vanilla, but not quite vanilla. Vanilla is just standard, but the part of the issue is people have to get their mind around rare earths. It's not traded through the LME, and so it's not as transparent as copper gold. So they have to evaluate the market far more before they come to it.
Okay, well, we definitely need rare earths. And I want to take a closer look now at that equity, that investment side of the equation. Your company's share price has lost a fair amount of ground recently, and it's trading near the lower end of its 52-week range. So why do you think investors should take a fresh look at it? Why is it a stock to watch?
We drifted is the only way, as everyone waited for the government to give us our primary approval. We're now releasing the information with respect to the investment, and people can now see exactly what the investment is and why it's good. And if I had to put that into what makes us different, permitted. All the major, sorry, I still have the mining license, but that is falling. So we have de-risked considerably. It's a simple process. As I explained, this is sand into spirals and floats. So when one looks at development, it is keeping it simple so that you don't trip, and you start getting revenue streams to actually for the investors to see and banks to be paid back. And it's in 2026. I would say that we are on a worldwide basis, we must be one of the few rare earth companies coming on in 2026. And finally, not only are we rare earths, we have this dual stream. And so right now, rare earths, anyone in the market knows that they came down off a peak of 2022. And if you look at our revenues right now, we look great, but it is on the heavy minerals. So we're 60-something% of our revenue stream on our current numbers of heavy minerals. That's actually good, because all the upside sits in the rare earths, which are going to recover. I'm going to say it's what's driving the future, whether it's turbines, cars, strategic for nuclear power stations, jets. Like, the future relies on rare earths, and we have them, and you're fully leveraged because we have this great underlying revenue stream from heavy minerals.
All right, fantastic. Ron, really appreciate what you've shared today. Interesting to learn about the dual revenue streams, the heavy metals and the rare earths. Wish you good luck as the project moves forward, and hope to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate you having me on.
We've been speaking with VHM CEO Ron Douglas, and you've been watching Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suardo.